Good evening. Welcome to MGTOW Theatre. With your host, I am serious. Today's topic, Into the Abyss. Women in the MRM.
Recently, I have seen a lot of comments, mostly by MRM women who simply don't understand the concepts of MGTOW. I've seen this in YouTube videos as well as on Facebook pages. However, I should also note that a lot of MRM men seem to be confused as well. Now, I want to make this video to not only clarify MGTOW to people like this, but also express some observations I have made in particular about women in the MRM. My feelings of women in the men's rights movement is a mixed one, and I mean women who they themselves are convinced they are sincere about their involvement, as I believe there are many women within the movement who are there for more undesirable and selfish reasons. These sincere women in the movement are often attracted to these circles for two reasons. One is that they have sons, brothers, or other male relations that have been directly affected by the injustice towards men in the modern Western legal system, especially in regards to the corrupt family court systems. Or they were drawn to the idea of equality existing between the sexes, legally and in some ways socially. As you know, the MRM attaches itself to the concept of equality, and I would dare say that this is their main and founding platform. But what must also be remembered is that feminism has claimed that very same platform of equality for itself, and has used it to attract many females to its movements. Both feminism and the MRM movement seem to be locked in this tug of war on top of this crumbling foundation called equality, with the rope representing the attention either side is seeking to recruit more members to their respected teams. However, within this tug of war, the feminists are clearly winning. And the simple and obvious reason is gynocentrism. Yes, the elephant in the room that most female MRAs refuse to acknowledge, and many male MRAs as well. Now, I will come back to concepts of equality and gynocentrism later, but first I want to say this. I feel a deep respect for the sincere women within the MRA movements because many are there at a great sacrifice. But I have to admit, at the same time, I also feel a great pity. Now, let me explain. When an informed woman, on her own free will, with sincere intentions, approaches the men's rights arena, she comes face to face with an abyss, and she must peer into this abyss. Now, this abyss of self-reflection is engineered through knowledge, wisdom, and observation, and designed with the blueprints of introspection. It's an abyss that men, by their nature, have been gazing into since not long after the dawn of human pair bonding, or metaphorically speaking, since Eve ate the fruit from the tree of knowledge. This abyss presents to the viewer a reflection of themselves. When placed in front of the modern Western woman, she sees not just a reflection of herself as an individual, but the reflection of the entire culture of women, their aspirations and behavior, and often is overcome with feelings of shame, fear, and anger. The women who have inserted themselves into men's rights circles, they are leaning over the edge, looking in, and what they see is their gynocentric self. They know deep down it is true, but very few will admit it to themselves. The men of MGTOW live on this edge, peering into the abyss and gaining wisdom on how to defend against, adjust to, or walk away from the biologically induced and culturally driven gynocentric nature of women and society at large. You know what's interesting though is often if an Eastern woman stares into this abyss and sees her own reflection, her reaction tends not to be one of shame, but actually pride and laughter. I mean, she knows it is true, and she would have it no other way. I give you this analogy of the abyss so that you, the listener, may better understand what I want to say about the condition of women in men's rights movements, and, as I mentioned before, my feelings of respect for them to have approached the edge, but as well as pity and some distrust, knowing that for them, true introspection into their own deep-rooted gynocentric privilege is nigh impossible for many to achieve. Now let me try to give some examples of what I'm trying to convey. I recently watched an episode of The Intelligence Report with Paul Elam, Dean Esme, and Dr. Tara Palmatier. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. And it's titled, #Gamergate Continues, #Date Off Campus May Be Next. The link will be below. In the video, both Dean Esme and Paul Elam brought up the very obtuse elephant in the room, that being gynocentrism, and it as a catalyst for what was going on in the issues that they were addressing. Let me play a few short audio clips from the video before I explain my point. The topic during this audio clip is on the Gamergate fiasco, which I'm sure everyone listening to this now is aware of.
And I think this gets down to something that we like to call gynocentrism, which is a big word, but it's men who are afraid of offending women. And men who think that protecting women, either consciously or unconsciously, think that's their job, is to defend women, and therefore, in a very dysfunctional way, let women get away with almost anything. Sometimes, I mean, not in Anita's case, but sometimes literally all the way up to murder. Anita Sarkeesian has lied and 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 been caught over and over and over again. And has any one of the gaming journals put up any of the well-done videos by Dr. Phil Mason, a.k.a. Thunderfoot, taking her apart? No. It's like he doesn't exist. Yeah, you mentioned The Amazing Atheist, although, you know, he's done some pretty good takedowns, very reasonable ones, too. There's a whole, I mean, Mundane Matt, and the Internet Aristocrat, and actually, you know, dozens of YouTubers, male and female alike, have over 2 years now consistently said there's a problem here with what this woman is saying, and there's a problem with what she's doing, and you're not allowing discussion of it. You're banning discussion of it. One gaming journal, I don't even remember which one, the guy actually had the balls, this was within the last month, to actually say, argue whatever you want, but don't criticize the women.
I read that. That was at Slate or Salon, one of the two. Might have been Slate.
But it was a gaming journal editorial originally, I believe, but he was serious. Like, yeah. Wait a minute. Okay, well, I mean, okay, everybody in here, I mean, fair disclosure, none of us, most of us here, everybody in this room is no longer considers themselves feminists. That's pure, and Paul and I both used to consider ourselves feminists. We don't anymore. I can never remember if Dr. T really considered herself one or not, ever. But we gave it up one way or the other because we see it's not about women's rights. It's an ideology. And it's a gynocentric ideology that essentially infantilizes women. It leads people to excuse horrendous behavior by women. The top offender to date has been Anita Sarkeesian, who has gotten away with all kinds of shenanigans and outright lies, and nobody's called her on it.
Well, people do call her on it, and then they're silenced because they're ridiculed. They're labeled misogynists. They're labeled rape apologists. They're labeled misogynerds, neckbeards, and they get pelted with ad hominem attacks, and they are silenced. And what these social justice warriors, including Sarkeesian and Zoe Quinn, do is they are human projection machines.
Now, Mr. Esme, he brazenly stuck his neck out here inside the MRM and pointed at the elephant in the room. I mean, these women do get special privilege because they have vaginas. He's absolutely right. And it's weird because it seems that many women like Anita Sarkeesian, they choose to surround themselves with blue pill men. And this brings once again to my attention how it seems so many gamer men tend to shy away from the red pill. And I have a theory of why this is, but that is a topic of another video. Just keep in mind that most men are ill prepared on how to deal with women invading their spaces. Anyway, notice how Dr. Tara Palmatier skirts around Esme's points. She does not repeat the dirty word gynocentrism, but rather waters it down by saying that people do call Anita Sarlacc Pit Squeezian out on her bullshit. But isn't that the fucking point? Of course she gets called out on her bullshit. But the point is that nothing ever happens as a result of this. And one reason nothing ever happens is because women, even those who find themselves for whatever reason allying with men within their movement to procure rights, still will not address their own nature and how it impedes the so-called equality that we all search for. Now, this is beyond the comfortable corner of easy repairable faulty politics. This is hardwired in our nature. And women, especially those in the MRM, they need to start talking about this now. Okay, let's listen to the next clip from that intelligence report.
Hypocrite. She's engaged in some really vile name-calling herself, but it only counts when other people are doing it to her. So she is a hypocrite of the highest order. She is a two-bit con artist, in my opinion.
And that's, I think that speaks back to what Dean was saying about gynocentrism and where the actual lesson is here. Because if there's no lesson in this whole affair, then it's pretty worthless. It's just a bunch of shit stirring that's going to end up in nothing. And I hope that there is people in the gaming community, which I do not belong to. This is, Zoe Quinn specifically is not my issue. Certainly feminism is an issue that I'm invested in, but it is another community different than mine. But what I hope some people can take away from it is just to take a look at what's happened in your community. Because Zoe Quinn is a woman, she has been able to come in and lie and cheat and twist and demonize other women and to do anything, and the moment you speak about it, somebody says, don't criticize the women. That is a pussy shield that she is wearing everywhere she goes, saying, I'm beyond reproach because I have a vagina. And largely, especially the people she's been using her vagina on, have sided with her and supported her in silencing even their own clientele. The people.
Well, let's face it, most of the people who are covering for her and supporting her have used her pussy for multiple purposes.
Yes, absolutely. She does have a multi-use vagina, and I'll give her credit for one thing. She, they say
her vagina is multitasking.
First of all, you must understand that naturally, women will rarely or not at all betray their own gender. And Dr. Tara's responses are evidence to this. At the beginning of the last audio clip, she was quick to point out that a Beaches Star Spleesian, or whatever the fuck her name is a hypocrite and a liar. Now, if I had a dime for every time a woman had bad-mouthed another woman in my presence, well, I'd be rich. Well, at least I'd be in a better apartment. But anyway, the doctor will never analyze Anita's behavior based on her gender and its condition through thousands of generations of biological evolution. Because to do so would mean she would have to not only stand on the edge of the abyss with the gentleman she converses with, but would actually have to peer into it and digest her own reflection as a female in the modern world. Elam was right when he mentioned the pussy shield. And like it or not, Dr. Tara was born with that shield as well. This shield even puts Captain America's shield to shame. Of course, the doctor's response to this was that Anita, or Zoe, or whatever other bitch they were talking about at the time, they use their pussy for multiple purposes. But all women have access to this. In fact, this is really the only multitasking platform that most women have available to them, besides maybe chatting on Facebook and pretending to work at the same time. Alright, now let me say something here, before any female MRA's panties get so knotted that they start reproducing menstrual pains. I think that what Dr. Tara is doing and how she activates as an activist within men's rights is noble, and it's worth being noticed. And this goes the same for all female MRAs. I mean, they stand on the edge of the abyss of gynocentrism, the hole that most women refuse to even approach. It's kind of like anal to a first-time porn actress. Now that alone is something. But I say it is time for them to take a deep, hard look into this abyss. Pull out the lube and throw away your inhibitions, ladies. You don't have to gently stroke the balls of the men who have been standing at that abyss their whole lives and whisper words of confirmation to them. We know the deal. Elam knows the deal. Esme knows the deal. Tara doesn't know the deal so much, and it's for the simple fact that she's a woman. There's no room for subtlety in this fiasco. But anyway, here's one more point from the video I want to highlight.
Well, where do you think they got the artistic idea?
See, you just can't make them happy. There's just no winning, because I'm guessing that the butt was rather big on the Spider-Woman.
Of course it was.
Okay, so, well then, that's good, right? Because they're tired of seeing women beauty depicted as, you know, thin and white. So they gave Spider-Woman a booty, but you can't win.
A big red booty. That should have fit their diversity model.
It should have. When you figure, yes, you have to think some of it is clickbait. You really do think it has to be. Let's just piss some people off. The problem is there's only so far you can press that line before you start pissing people off too much and they start walking away.
Well, when you start attacking your consumers, that's just not that they haven't done it before. Not that other industries haven't done it before, but I think they crossed a line that I don't know that they can retreat from.
Now, I wanted to highlight this particular portion of the video for a reason. Now, at this point, the crew is talking about Spider-Woman's ass. And if anyone listening is confused by that, you can either watch the Voice for Men video I am sourcing in its entirety, link is below, or check out the link I will post below, specifically talking about a comic book heroine and her sultry ass. Your choice. But here, in this part I highlighted, clickbait is mentioned. And I'm sure you know what that is. You see, the thing is that clickbait is a typical female response to the fact that 80% of consumer spending in North America can be traced to the hijacked wallets of husbands and boyfriends, buried in the labyrinth of a woman's purse. Yes, men like to make money, and because of that, they generally make more than women. But for some gynocentric reason, women tend to spend more. Now again, the doctor shames feminist websites for sponsoring clickbait, but this is done outside the limited feminist wisdom that it is women who will spend the money and click on such bullshit. Now look, AVFM, they are a website also that relies on an income. They too will try to get you to click on their links because they have to. This is not a bad thing. But as I mentioned before, this tug of war between the MRA and feminism, it's already won by the gynocentric gender. I don't care what tactics MRAs might use to drive traffic to their websites. It will always pale in comparison to the juggernaut of female spending. And it is this juggernaut that feminist websites monopolize. This is why MRAs have no problem inviting women to speak for their cause. Because if they didn't, the happy land of men's rights would until today be populated by crickets. Feminists have won this battle. They appeal to the female ego. MRAs do not. And this is also why so many feminist websites constantly contradict themselves with the articles they post. Here, I'm going to put up this example for you to look at. These things exist within the gynosphere because women are not concerned about content, but only with what appeals to their fleeting egos and those shiny objects of female consumer desires. On a side note, I might suggest to MRAs to quit wasting time on gynocentric hypocrisy. You might as well scream at the wind for ruining your new haircut. Now, I've done a video on women and their spending, which corresponds nicely with the concept of clickbait and its female targets. I'll also put a link to that below if you're interested in checking it out. Now I want to turn the attention to a Facebook comment made on the Honey Badger's official page, and I'm miming quotation marks on either side of my head while I say that. Now I know the Honey Badgers and AVFM are not responsible for the comments of people who subscribe to their pages, but Me being a short-term member of said page and a MGTOW was quite unpleasantly not surprised at what so-called female MRAs thought of the MGTOW movement. Let me quote one comment, and I quote,
"Why are Sandman's followers so bitter about women? I used to watch his videos until he started to decry women were toxic in a biological way, and that their gynocentrism wasn't cultural but biological. So I left. It's okay. But a comment that I left in the MGTOW video about me trying to understand MGTOW and how their ideology of independence from the system was interesting, and that if we wanted to learn how to help men, we need to understand why they were so angry. That comment kept being attacked with things like, 'Go away. Nobody cares about your tits. This is a gentleman's club. No women allowed.' I'm like, lol, what? I was just trying to understand, but it seems MGTOW has turned too bitter for me. At least that channel. I don't know. IDK. Thoughts?"
Do you know why MGTOW is unacceptable to this particular female MRA? It's because she's not invited. MGTOW men could sing the praises of women until their farts started conducting a Disney-esque melody, but women, regardless of their affiliation, would still not be happy. This is because, and let me state this in the most layman of terms, you women are not invited. Is that so hard to understand? This fact again relays the importance of understanding gynocentrism. Many so-called female MRAs will still try to invade the real last space for men, which is MGTOW, and cry foul when they're turned away at the door. Either that or they just don't understand what they are talking about. She might say,
"Why can't I understand this men speak? They must not like me and therefore be women haters. I am an MRA, damn it."
"Look, baby, you do not belong here. Much in the same way that I as a man do not and wish not to belong to your all-female, no embarrassment if you fart loudly in the stretching dog pose yoga classes. The only difference here is that we men don't knock on your gynocentric yoga class door and then cry foul when you refuse to answer. Instead, we walk away, quietly thanking whatever God we believe in that we narrowly escaped a horrible experience. And this is what women will never understand, regardless of the badge they wear. As long as they refuse to not only approach the edge of the abyss and stand beside the men taking notes, but also peer into it deeply and realize that, well, guess what? The world, even though it has said so in the past, was never meant to revolve around you. And guess what again, baby? Sandman isn't bitter, and neither are those who watch him. You know, as much as Girl Rights What has been a poster child and a gateway to many men and women approaching men's rights, Sandman has served the same valuable function to men, but not women, in approaching MGTOW. Understand it and get used to it. The only difference is that the MRM needs women, or the sleepy eyes of our gynocentric world will not take notice, and society as a whole will simply yawn unapologetically and call, "Next." MGTOW does not need that. That is why it is called men going their own way. There is no woman in that title. Deal with it. You see, in the world, even men's barbershops are not safe to the intrusion of women. I'm sorry, honey. This is one club you will never get into. And to all those MRA men who love to mimic this female behavior, trying as hard as they can to get the respect of at least one woman who identifies with his phallic suffering, and I do know a few MRA video uploaders who fall into this category, though they will remain unnamed at this point, and how they spend so much time trying to belittle MGTOW. Yeah, you two, you're not invited either. You swallow the pill or you get the fuck out. And if either of you have a problem with that, why don't we sit down for tea one day and talk about it after all the smoke clears? Men like myself are on their way, our own way. You see, we did what men do best. We engineer. Out of the cesspool dump of gynocentric culture, we engineered another road to escape, and even female MRAs are gynocentrically disappointed that they were not invited. Finally, let's consider the female concept of equality. And we all know that this concept is the iron platform of modern-day feminism, and I dare say leftist politics. And it can often be seen regurgitated within MRM circles. It states,
"We must be equal. We are all equal. Men and women are equal,"
they cry. It only takes a simple moment of self-reflection at the edge of the abyss to understand that these claims are as solid as a fart through yoga pants. Yeah, they stink and garner your attention, but in reality, they tend to clear a room. Now, I will say this once. Men and women are not equal. Confused? Try using your natural-born ability to observe in order to better understand. There is no equality in nature, only equilibrium. There is only balance, and balance does not mean equal. The best men and women can hope for is to return to a natural understanding that men and women complement each other. They do not equal one another. You know, many prominent American psychologists and sociologists have stated that even in infancy, boys and girls are naturally attracted to different things and objects, and that this fact translates into an understanding that on a deep biological level, men and women are very different in their thinking, actions, approaches to life, interests, and abilities. The genders of the animal kingdom, including lions and hyenas, even understand this. Yet so many human beings still do not. There are three basic kinds of women that exist, especially when we regard soliciting within the arena of man-woman relations. The first kind are the ones who laugh in the face of their own gynocentric destiny, as is revealed in the void. They laugh because they know the power that they have and would never do anything to change their current situation. And most of these women, they're living in the East. Yeah, you know, those oppressed Asian and Muslim women. Well, they're laughing in your face. The second are those women who refuse to look into the void, the abyss of gynocentrism. These are your typical Western women who have embraced feminism because they had to watch their gynocentric power start to fade after woman's kryptonite, or men's minds, began advancing technology. The third is the MRA woman. They do brave the edge of the abyss and even give a casual glance into it. But when they do, they are often repulsed by what they see. It is, after all, a huge, humble sandwich to consume, one that they had to make for themselves in Gynocentria's kitchen. But having afforded a trip to the void's edge, and the courage to peer into it, without laughing at their own female ego, the MRA females have the capacity to reflect, and in doing so can also look to either side and see other men, prominently MGTOW men, peering into the void as well, fixated, taking notes, and sharing them with his brothers. However, when they see this, they become angry, enraged even, because despite the sacrifices that they've made by approaching and confronting this abyss, in order to deconstruct their own female ego, they are in the end only rewarded with the fact that men can, and often, do quite well without them. These women are in an abundance on certain MRA Facebook groups, trying to fit in and feign commitment. In fact, many reformed male feminists who have come into MRA groups and approached the abyss, well, they behave much the same as this third category of women. But I also believe that there is a fourth category of woman, and this is an extremely rare breed. one that not only approached and peered over the edge of the abyss, and she even regarded the MGTOW men taking notes on the side without coming to anger, but she has also begun the long, hard process of introspection and acceptance of her gynocentric privilege, and in doing so realizes that until she accepts this reality without bruising her fragile feminine ego, nothing will ever change. She realizes that the change that not only she desires, but what society needs, is for women to collectively return the responsibility of engineering the social evolution of our sexually dimorphic pair bonding species known as humans back into the hands of the men. And she needs to be humble enough to apologize for her behavior. Gynocentrism is a biological response to environmentally encouraged evolution. In other words, we are born with the genetic blueprints to best navigate our lives, depending on the sex that our hormones chose at the moment of conception and gestation. But what we as humans do in the meantime with our environment dictates which genetic influences we will encourage or abate. But despite that, in order for any sexually dimorphic species that gravitates to pair bonding, we are doused in the flammable fluid of gynocentrism in order for us to perpetuate our existence as a species. In other words, we needed it to survive. The greatest challenge we face as human beings today is the challenge of traversing the peaks and valleys of this natural-born gynocentrism, and with the aid of technology and human ingenuity, evolve to the next level. The level of humanity where gynocentrism, hypergamy, and the woman's natural desire to cockhold and be a victim to brute law is erased. But I swear to whatever God you choose, this will not happen as long as women try to continue to co-opt male spaces and refuse to look into the abyss of gynocentrism and take responsibility as a gender in the next and inevitable evolution of the human race. Not equality, but equilibrium.
You have been watching MGTOW Theatre with I Am Serious. Join us next time for more insight into men and their roles in society today.